To those who know Vardruna, they know that that the spiritual concept behind is quite important, and since I'm working with runes as well, that's something that most people are familiar with. Anyone here who works with runes? Don't be shy. Come on. Anyone working with runes? Yes! Okay. Do you guys also know, guys and gals, also know the rules of writing with runes? Good, some. But it became more quiet. And considering runes are mostly about writing, that is something worth thinking about, because modern rune lore is sadly in a quite poor state. These days, the modern rune lore is actually not stretching further back in time than the 80s, actually, and has very little to do with the original rune tradition. Now, the word rune, that can mean different things. It's a letter, of course, that you can write with. It can mean a magical song. It can mean sound, basically. And it can mean secrets and knowledge. Very often it's related to esoteric knowledge, deeper knowledge. So, but that's also something that's important for me through Vardruna, and through being able to communicate with people and communicate culture. It's important for me to sort of reclaim all of these things, reclaim the culture that British and American authors sort of capitalized in the 70s and 80s and made an industry of, which has nothing to do with the origin. What they did was they took the Elder Futhark, that's the oldest Proto-Norse rune set, and what they did, because the Elder Futhark, that's actually the runes that we know the very least about. We don't even know their names. So when you see a rune book, it's always about the Elder Futhark. And it always have page up and down with what it represents, what gemstones it has, what star signs, what stones, and whatnot. And it has a name, of course. When you see this, please know that that name was reconstructed. It always has, if you write a scholar book, it always has this little dot on the end. That means it's a reconstruction. It was reconstructed in the mid-1800s by runologists, and of course, since we know so little about these runes, that means we can let the creativity flow, and that is basically what has happened, because people have sort of made these new things by combining Kabbalah, astrology, tarot, etc. into runes. But if you see what real rune magic is about, firstly I have to say it's really difficult to even know what rune magic was. But what we do know is that it's connected to writing. It's connected to words and repetition. And repetition is also important when you are working with galdr, which is oral incantations. Their repetition, that's the only poetic meter in Old Norse that actually repeats something. And that is also, when you see rune writings, when it was in its peak, when before it got contaminated with Latin, you see that the rune masters they had really strict rules, and one of the rules was that they never repeated a rune. It was very strict. Even so they never did like double consonants. And if one word ended with one rune and the next started with the same, they just mashed it together as one word. Because when you start repeating runes, then you are working with other stuff. Then you are working with unlocking. Then you're working with the symbolic value of it. That's why you see a text, and then you see all of these repetitions afterwards. And if you count them, very often you find the same number of runes. That's also quite interesting. But not something we know for sure. And that's important for me to convey. Because I also work with the Elder Futhark in my rune project. And for me, it was a conscious choice. Because there is more room for personal interpretation. Yeah. So if you ever want to learn about runes, then it's important. I always say that you should not start climbing in a tree without roots, because then you will fall. It's quite simple. So that means that if you should know, the first thing if you want to learn runes is to find out how we know what we think we know about the runes, and that is by going back in time and see the history of runology, basically. Start with that, and start with learning to write runes. And then you understand more. Then you understand how these things interact. So the last thing you should do is to start with the Elder Futhark, because that's needle in the haystack. Okay, I'll sing a song. I think I'm going to sing a song that I've never done before in front of an audience.
Ooh.
So this is only for you.
Oh.
It's a song